We're up to the bottom of Yerches Amid Beis. We're at the words, My time of Derabanan. So, what the Gemara had said was, it's a machlokes tanoim, whether the yitzika, which is pouring the oil on the mincha, the last stage of pouring the oil, whether it has to be done by a kohen. The Chachamim, the author of our Mishnah, say it doesn't have to be done by a kohen. They hold the only thing that needs to be done by a kohen is kmitza and onward. Everything before kmitza, including pouring of the oil, can be done by Yisrael. Comes Rav Shimon and he's chaylik. We ended yesterday that our Mishnah is not like Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon holds no, it has to be done by a kohen. So the Gemara says, "My time of the Rabbanon." What is the machlokes about? So why did the Rabbanon hold that you do not need a kohen to pour the oil? So Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'yotzak aleh Hashem." Look at the pasuk; it's important because it's going to come up. V'yotzak aleh Hashem, and he pours oil. V'nosan aleh levayna, and he places frankincense. V'hevia el bnei Aaron a kohen v'kamatz. And they bring it to the Kehanim to do the Kmitza. The simple reading of the Pasuk is, the Kehanim do the Kmitza, but everything before the Kmitza, including the pouring of the oil, can be done by a non-Kohen. Mikmitza ve'elach mitzvahs kahuna, limra yitziku bli l'shekshar bizar. The Pashut reading of the Pasuk, it says, v'yatzak, you pour the oil, and then you go to the Kohen. So the Kohen is only on the next stage, which is the Kmitza. Why does Rav Shimon hold that the pouring of the oil also has to be done by a Kohen? For Rav Shimon, my time, the Gemara says, "Bnei Aaron haKehanim mikra nidrish lefanav ula'achrav." Rav Shimon's shita is like this: when you have a pasuk that has a words in the middle, the words in the middle both go to the end of the pasuk and the beginning. So therefore, the way you read the pasuk is as follows: V'yatzak aleh Hashem v'nasal levan. You pour the oil. Ve'evi el bnei Aaron. That bnei Aaron is going both on the beginning of the pasuk and the end of the pasuk. Meaning, when you pasuk read the pasuk, it seems that the words bnei Aaron is going to the end of the pasuk. The Kehanim do the kmitza. No. The mikra nidrish lefanav ula'achrav. The middle of the pasuk is going both on the end of the pasuk and the beginning. So v'yotzak is going on bnei Aaron, is going on the yitzika as well. So Rav Shimon has a fundamental shita that when you have words, let's say nouns in the middle of the pasuk, it's going both on the end of the pasuk and the beginning. Says the Gemara, the problem is, so Bnei Aaron in the middle of the pasuk is going on the end and the beginning. The entire pasuk is Bnei Aaron. Here's the issue.
So that would mean that Bnei Aaron are the only ones who...
Correct, and that's Rav Shimon Shita. Now here's the problem. The problem is that's not Rav Shimon Shita. Rav Shimon Shita is not like that. We have a very similar pasuk, but instead of Yitzika and Kmitza and Aaron in the middle, we have a pasuk, I'll say it outside, we have a pasuk that says like this. It's talking about the procedure of the blood in the Beis HaMikdash. It says V'lokach, which is the Kabbalah Sadam. The end of the pasuk talks about the Zrika Sadam, V'zarak, and in the middle it says Etzba'o. Etzba'o, the Gemara Darshans based on a drasha from Mitzrayim, means the right finger. So in other words, the right hand. So here's the question: which part of the process needs to be done the right hand? So definitely the end of the pasuk, which is the zrika, you have to do the right hand. The question is, do you have to do Kabbalah with the right hand? Can I hold the kli with my left hand? So you know what Rav Shimon Shita is? It's mamish the same thing. It's the same formula. You have words in the middle, etzbo. The end of the pasuk is the zrika. The beginning of the pasuk is Kabbalah. If you believe that Rav Shimon holds that this formula, which is words in the middle, go by the beginning and the end, that should mean that the Kabbalah also has to be done with the right hand, but that's not Rav Shimon Shita, because Rav Shimon does not believe that. Rav Shimon believes that when there are words in the middle of the pasuk, it's going on the end of the pasuk, not the beginning. So how could you tell me that that's a shita over here? That is not his shita in Kol Kula. Says the Gemara, "V'savar of Shimon mikra nidrish lefanav la'achrav." Is that Rav Shimon shita? The problem is, Vatanya, the Brisa says, "V'lokach," which is the Kabbalah. The pasuk begins that the kohen will receive the blood of the chatas be'etzba'o. In the middle it says be'etzba'o, which means the right finger or right hand. V'nosan es hakarnas, and he places the blood. So Kabbalah, hand, zrika, or nesina, whatever you call it, the placing of the blood on the mizbech. Be'etzba'o v'lokach melamed shel tekabbalah b'yamin be'etzba'o v'nosan melamed shel nesina l'yamin. The Tanakama believes Be'etzbo is going on both the beginning of the pasuk and the end of the pasuk, which means both the Nesina Sadam and the Kabbalah Sadam have to be done with the right hand. That's the Tanakama shita. Comes Rav Shimon, he says no. The Chinemer Yad B'Kabbalah, Halav Lenemer Yad B'Kabbalah, keepable small kasha. Rav Shimon says the word Etzbo is only on the end of the pasuk. The Nesina Sadam has to be done with the right hand. The beginning of the pasuk is no shaychus. The beginning of the pasuk, no connection, and it can be done with the left hand, so you could receive the blood holding the cup in your left hand. The point is, Rosh Shimon does not go with this formula. When there's a word in the middle of the pasuk, it does not go in the beginning of the pasuk, it goes on the end of the pasuk. So we're back to the original problem, and the Gemara clarifies, Vam Rabbi, Mikra Nidish Lefanav Acho Kamiflagi. So the problem is, if that's Taka Rav Shimon Shita, we're back to the original problem. Why does Rav Shimon hold that the pouring of the oil, the Yitzika, must be done by a Kayin if Rav Shimon does not generally believe in Mikra Nidish Lefanav V'Le'acharav? So the Gemara says, you're right, he generally doesn't, but in this case he does. Why? Elahainu Taimad Rav Shimon V'Hevi'ah. If you go back to that pasuk of pouring of the oil, I'll just read it to you. It says, "V'yatzek aleh Shemen." He pours the oil. V'nasal levoina. V'haviyah el bnei Aaron. And vav, connector. The connector connects the beginning of the pasuk to the words bnei Aaron. So normally Rav Shimon does not just say the middle of the pasuk automatically explains the beginning of the pasuk. Not necessarily, but the vav does. Vav is a connector. Says the Gemara. The Savra of Shimon Vav Moisef. Is that Rav Shimon Shita that a Vav connects to Parshiyas? I thought Rav Shimon doesn't hold that way. How do we find Elamiat Dechsiv V'Shachat Es Ben Habakar? Right. Look at the pasuk. It says Yushach the carbon V'Hikriv Bnei Aaron HaKayahanim Esadam, and the Kahanim receive the blood and do the Zrika. Let me ask you a question. Does the Shchita of a carbon need to be done by a Kayan? No. Why? Because if you read the pasuk, it says v'shachadas ben abakar, you shech the carbon, v'hikrivak ben Aaron hakayanim, and the kahanim do the rest. The simple pshat of the pasuk is the kahanim don't do the shchita. But here's the problem: if you tell me that the vav connects the whole parsha, then the v'hikriv should go on the beginning of the pasuk. So that should mean that the kahanim should also have to do the shchita. So says the Gemara, "Hamekabal v'elach mitzvos kahuna, melamed al shchita shechei bizar." Now, either of Shimon Vav Moisel in Irishin Shchita Chanami Bizar Teipsula. If Takar of Shimon Shita is that the Vav connects the whole pasuk, so that there's a Vav in the middle of the pasuk, they have Hikrivu. So that should mean V'Shachat in the beginning of the pasuk should also have to be done by a Kayin. So, in other words, according to Rav Shimon, why is a non-Kayin allowed to shech the carbon? So, Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Generally, you're right. The Vav connects the whole thing, and from this pasuk alone, it would seem that a Kayin should have to do the Shechita. But there's a different source that the Kayin does not have to do the Shechita. I'll tell you why. Shani Hasam Damakra, the pasuk says, the previous pasuk says, V'samach, that you lean on the carbon, V'shachat. It says, V'samach, what's the lashon of the pasuk? V'samach, I'll get the whole pasuk. Just, V'samach yada aroshav, V'shachat. V'samach is connected to v'shachat. Now the Gemara says, "Ma smicha bizarim." Just like the smicha, who does the smicha? The owner. Owners are not all kehanim. I can do the smicha of my carbon. Af shchita bizarim. So you're right. The vav thing would make it that it would seem that it has to be a kayin. But there's a different pasuk tells me a kayin does not have to do it because the pasuk equates the shchita to the smicha. Just like the smicha can be done by anyone, even a non-kayin, so to the shchita can be done by non-kahanim. So Gemara, okay, you want to play that game of connecting the smicha to the shchita, then take it further. Who does the smicha? Only the owners. So that means the shchita should only be done by the owners. Says the Gemara, Imas smicha b'baylim, av shchita b'baylim. So that should mean not just that anyone could do the shchita, maybe it should have to be dafka by the owners. All carbonas. Well, this is in the world of Rav Shimon. So says the Gemara, no. It doesn't have to be done. The shchita does not have to be done by the owners only. Why? Kal v'chomer. Meaning, in other words, according to this, kohanim should not be able to do the shchita. The shchita should have to be done by the owner. And if I bring my carbon, I should have to do the shchita, and not the kohen gadol. Says the Gemara, no, it can't be. Why? Kavachomer. Uma zrika de ikar kapar loiboy bailim. Shchita de lav ikar kapar loiboy bailim. Okay, let me ask you a question. I bring my carbon. You want to make this cheshbon that because I connect the shchita to the smicha, just like I have to do the smicha, I have to do the shchita as well. So that's for me that a kohen can't do it. It has to be me. Whereas it can't be. Why? What's the ikar carbon? The ikar part of the carbon is what? Like the ikar kapara, it's not the shchita, it's the zrikas hadam. Who does the zrikas hadam? Do I do it? No. It's the kohen who does it. You're telling me he can do the zrika, but he can't do the shchita? It can't be. If it can't be that the shchita has to be done by the owner because and not by anybody else. The zrika, which is the ikar carbon, could be done by other people. So kavachayim, the shchita does not have to be done. Says the Gemara, well, okay, but that's not a great equation. Why? V'chidon in efsher, v'chitema ein don in efsher, m'shi efsher. That's not a great proof. Why? What's your proof that a non-owner should be able to do the shechita because a non-owner does the zrika? Yeah, a non-owner does the zrika because it's impossible. I'm a non-kayan. I'm not a kayan. There's no way on this planet I'll ever be able to do zrika sadam. It's impossible. But I could do shechita. So we had an argument before. Maybe the owner should have to do shechita. The Gemara says, no, it can't be. Why? Because the kayan could do zrika. So you're telling me that he could do zrika, but he can't do shechita? The Gemara says, well, it's not the same. Maybe he could do zrika because it's impossible for the owner to do zrika. If you're a non-kayan, it's impossible. But shechita, which is possible, maybe he should have to do it. I don't know. Would it shock you if I told you that the owner has to do the shechita? And you'll say, but the owner doesn't do the shechita. Yeah, because he can't. He's not a kayan, but he could do the shechita. So maybe he should have to do the shechita. So in other words, how do you know the owner is not required to do the shechita? So it says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Gali Rachman Rabbi Yomi Kippurim v'shachar es parachatas asher loy v'chlal d'shchita ba'am loy boy bailu. I'll tell you why. Because the pasuk says on Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol takes his par and shechs his par, which implies that you don't always have to shecht your carbon. Dafka on Yom Kippur, the pasuk emphasizes that the Kohen Gadol is shechting his own carbon, which implies that if it's not in this scenario, it's not always required that a person shecht his own carbon. Okay.
In other words, from here we learn that the Kohen could be doing this?
It could. That should. Could. You want to do the shechita, it's like a mile, it's like the baby. You want to do it, great. Right. You're not able to, that's fine, whatever. Okay, new topic, and this is going to take us, I think, towards the end of the daf. Amirav, kol makom shenemar Torah v'chuka ein alakiv. Anytime the words are found in a parsha, the word Torah and the word chuka, it means everything in the parsha is ma'akiv. It has to be done, and if b'diavad it's not done, it's an issue. Now, says the Gemara, kasal gadayach, we assume at this point, you need both words for it to be ma'akiv. Tarti ba'i. What? Meaning that if it just says the word chukah, it's not ma'akiv. If it just says the word Torah, not ma'akiv. But if it says the word both, it's ma'akiv. What's an example of both? Zois chukas ha-Torah. Chukah and Torah. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, we just made a rule that it has to be both for it to be ma'akiv. Harei Nazir, but the parsha of Nazir, the like siv bela Torah, it just says Torah, it doesn't say the word chukah. V'amirav tnufa ben Nazir ma'akva. And it's ma'akiv, there are parts of the Nazir that's ma'akiv, meaning you just told me the rule is that it's only ma'akiv if it's both chukah and Torah. The problem is we're going to have like 6 parashas that it's just one and it's ma'akiv. Says Gemara, Nazir is ma'akiv and it's just the word chukah, it's just the word Torah, I'm sorry. The answer is Shani Hasam, Kivin Dechsiv, Kein Yasa, Command Dechsiv, B'chugdami. Really, that's the exception. Really, you need both for it to be ma'akiv. So why is ma'akiv just the word Torah? Because over there it says Kein Yasa. Kein Yasa is like the second lashon is it's ma'akiv. Okay. The Gemara says, okay, what about Toida, the carbon Toida? The like Siv Be'ela Torah. It just says the word Torah, it doesn't say the word Chukah, so that should be nothing ma'akiv by the carbon Toida. But that's not true. But Tanan, Araba Shabbat Toida, the Makman says that. The 4 types of bread are ma'akiv each other. If you're missing one of the bread, it's not Yaitza. But why? It doesn't say the word Torah and Chukah. So the Gemara says, Shani Toida the Iskish LeNazir. That's different. Nazir is the exception, as we just said, and Toida is connected to Nazir. Dechsiv al zevach toida shlomav v'amar shlomav l'Rabbi Shalmei Nazir. The word toida in the parsha toida it mentions the Shalmei Nazir. So really, you need both for it to be ma'akiv. Nazir is an exception, and toida is hukish l'Nazir. Says okay, keep going. Harei Mitzayra, the parsha of Mitzayra, the like Siv Be'ela Torah. It only says the word Torah, so there should be nothing ma'akiv in the Mitzayra process. Utnan arba minim shebetzayra ma'akvin zebzeh. But there are things. How you clean, the process of cleaning the clothing, the soaps and all that stuff is ma'akiv. So why is it ma'akiv? It doesn't say the word Torah and Chukah. So the Gemara says, Shani asim kim nechliv zois tia Torah sa Mitzayra keman dechsiv chukah. It says zois tia, which is that's ma'akiv. It's the exception. Keep going. Harei Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippur, Deloy Ksiv Be'ela Chukah. It only says Chukah. Should there be nothing ma'akiv in Yom Kippur? It's the opposite. Utanan Shnei Sirim Yom Kippur Makvin says that there are many aspects of Yom Kippur that are ma'akiv each other. So says the Gemara, Ela Torah Oy Chukah. The answer is you don't need both, either or. Okay. Wait a minute. Either or means it's ma'akiv. Harishar Karbanis Dechsiv Be Torah V'loy Ma'akiv. Every carbon says the word Torah. Zayis Tyrus Ashlamim, Zayis Tyrus Achata, Zayis Tyrus Hayla. Then everything should be makiv. If you're telling me one lashon is enough, somebody says, no. Torah by chukah, chukah by Torah. Chukah is makiv. If you have the word Torah, it's not enough. So if you have the word Torah, you need the word chukah. If you have the word chukah, you don't need the word Torah. In other words, chukah is makiv. Says the Gemara, ha-Torah v'chuka kamer, but didn't you say or? No, hachi kamer. Aval gav d'chsiv Torah, iksiv chuka ini loy loy. When we said both, we don't mean both. What we meant is, chuka is the hikr, and even if you have the word Torah, you still need the word chuka. Okay. Says the Gemara, okay. So now, according to this, it's only ma'akiv if you have the word chuka. That's the main thing. That's the key. Harei mincha d'chsiv bechuka. Mincha, it says the word chayk. So that should mean that the entire process of karban mincha is ma'akiv, because he said chukam is ma'akiv. Here's the issue. V'amirav kol makim shehichzir akasev b'toras mincha ein alakiv. Hichzir in lehichzir loy. The karban mincha is written twice. First in Parshas Vayikra, and then it's repeated in Sav. The next parsha. Rav tells you a rule. Anything that's repeated is ma'akiv. So if let's say in Parshas Vayikra, it means if you don't do it, you're not Yaitza. It's not your b'di'evet, it's a problem. So here's the thing. So in Parshas Vayikra, it let's say lists 10 halachas. I don't know, I'm just giving an example. It lists 10 halachas about the mincha. And then in Tzav, it repeats 5 of them. Those 5 that are repeated are ma'akiv. That's Rav Shita. But here's the problem. It shouldn't just be 5. It should be every single halacha. If you're telling me the word chukah is enough, and it says the word chukah, what do I care what's repeated? It should be that. It's automatic ma'akiv. So the Gemara says, no. Shani hacham the kivin the chsiv chukah chilaksiv. The Gemara says, no. Only it's ma'akiv if the word chayk is on the process. Meaning like zois chukas shlamim, let's say. It's not that, there's no pasuk like that. But so that would be the word chayk is on the process. By mincha, it's the word chayk is by the achila. So the reason why it's not automatically ma'akiv is because the word chayk is not on the procedure of mincha, it's on the eating of the karban mincha. And therefore, for the procedure, only the thing gets repeated. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. If you're telling me that the word chayk, we care, like I thought when we were talking, that if it says the word chayk anywhere, then the whole parsha is covered. Whereas no, you got to look where the word chayk is. If the chayk is by the eating, then the eating is ma'akiv. If the word chayk is not by the procedure, you understand? So by mincha, it says the word chayk not by the procedure of the karban, but the eating of the karban. Says the Gemara, does that matter? Harei lechem aponim. Regarding the lechem aponim, the chiksiv chuka achivaksiv. The lechem aponim, it says the word chayk regarding the eating. So stop right here. According to this, that should mean that the only thing that's ma'akiv is the eating, but not the procedure. But the problem is that's not true. Utnan, shnei sdarim makvin zezeh, shnei bazikim makvin zezeh, hastarim bazikim makvin zezeh. You need the 6 loaves on each side of the table. You need the 2 spoons. And if you're missing one of those things, it's ma'akiv. But the word chayk is not by the procedure. So what do you have to say? Who cares where the word chayk is? As long as the word chayk is found somewhere, that's enough. So says the Gemara, the answer is when it says the word chayk by achila, means the entire parsha. So back to the original problem. If the word chayk is enough anywhere in the parsha, then why by the karban mincha is the only thing that's ma'akiv, the part that's repeated, should be the entire parsha is ma'akiv. So Gemara says, Shani hasam the amar kra migirsa umishamna. I'll tell you why. It's different. By the karban mincha, you're right. Generally, the word chayk is enough. For whatever reason, by the karban mincha, the word chayk is the exception. It doesn't count to be ma'akiv. How do I know this? Because the pasuk says regarding mincha, migirsa umishamna, from its oil and from its flour. Why not just say migaras umishaman? What do you mean its oil? Just say the oil and the flour. Why do you have to say its oil and its flour? It's to tell you that the oil and the flour is essential. Meaning, in other words, the Torah is telling you some things are essential and some things are not. Dafka, the oil and the flour, how it's prepared and all that stuff is essential. Some things not. So the Torah is telling you that generally chukah is ma'akiv, but by mincha, not so much. Dafka, the things that I'm mentioning are ma'akiv. The oil, the flour, the things that are repeated, v'chulei. Go to the next page. Okay. Now the Gemara says, let me just sort of say outside what we'll see. We had a ruling from Rav that everything that's repeated is ma'akiv by the karban mincha. So everything in Sav is ma'akiv. Shmuel seems to disagree with that. The problem we're going to have is that there's no way this is a machlokas. It seems to be universally accepted. So the Gemara is going to explain that Rav and Shmuel are arguing about a very specific point regarding the mincha. Let's see inside. Gufa Amarav kol makam shechzal akasa b'toira mincha ein alakiv. Says Rav, the rule, anything that's repeated regarding the karban mincha is ma'akiv. Shmuel Amar, no. Geres v'shemen ma'akvin ve'in davar achim v'shem. Only the oil and the flour is ma'akiv, meaning that you need oil and flour, and the amounts, that's the only thing ma'akiv, nothing else. That sounds like Shmuel does not believe in this whole repeating thing. Says the Gemara, Shmuel avagav detana be krole ma'akvave. There's no way. There's a general rule throughout Karbanos, we've been doing Karbanos long enough, that if something is repeated, it's repeated for a reason. So you're telling me, according to Shmuel, the whole repetition thing is irrelevant? It doesn't matter? There's no way. So what's going on? So let me sort of say outside and we'll see it inside. The Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is as follows. Everyone agrees if something is repeated, it's ma'akiv. No question. The Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is, what if you have something that's repeated, but the first time it was written, it was not written l'dairis. It was written for a mincha that happened once. There were historical karbanos that were one-time karbanos, like the inauguration of the Mishkan. There were karbanos that were one-time deals. The question is, does that count? Rav says it does, and Shmuel says no. So Rav and Shmuel both agree if it's repeated in Parshas Vayikra and Sav, which are commands for the future Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan, of course it's ma'akid. The machlokes is if you have a halacha that's stated twice, but one of the time that it's stated, it was said by a specific one-time karban, is that counting as repeating? That's a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. The Gemara says, what's an example of a halacha that's repeated twice, but one of the times was only written l'shah? One of the examples is, how do you know, it's interesting, child, you do kmitza with your hand, right? And we said before that it's complicated, you have to do it. Why can't I just do this? I'll measure my hand, how my kmitza is, and I'll find out it's 2 ounces. So I'll go to a scoop, I'll get a scoop. It's a 2-ounce scoop. Why can't I do that? So the Gemara says, Rav says, Kol hichad tana b'krov adam akva. V'hacha b'maloi kumtzoi b'kumtzak mithagi. Over here, they're specifically arguing about why you're not allowed to use the scoop in that specific halacha. What's the source? Titania, Maloi kumtzai. The pasuk says that you have to have a full kaimitz, a full scoop, a full handworth. And bukumtzai. And it also says bukumtzai. What does that mean? It said twice. Shalayase midil kaimitz. You're not allowed to use a measure. You have to use your hand. You can't just get a scoop that's the size of your hand. Rav savar hanami tana bikra. Rav believes that this halacha is stated twice. And Shmuel disagrees. Why does Rav say it's stated twice? L'chariz only said once. Where is the second time? Because the pasuk says that the inauguration of the Mishkan, Aaron took his hand to do the mincha. Oh, you see, he used his hand. He didn't use a scoop. So Rav says it said twice. It said regarding the command to use your hand, and it said that Aaron used his hand. That's twice. Shmuel says that's not twice. Why? No, according to Shmuel, you still can't do it. I don't know, maybe if you did it b'di'evan, maybe b'yoytz, I'm not sure. But the point is, Shmuel does not count that as twice, because the time about Aaron was not, that was a one-time deal, that was the inauguration. That's not fair. Rav Yaakov mincha v'yamalekam menu. Shmuel daris mishalei alfinan. Shmuel says, we don't learn out halachas from the inauguration. Here's the issue. This entire daf is just like one long stream of consciousness. Here's the problem. Shmuel does not learn out from the inauguration. Yeah, he does. What's the source? We've had this many, many times. There were different measuring cups and different klisharis in the Mishkan. There were things that were meant for liquids, and there were things that were meant for solids. If you put solids in a liquid cup, like a liquid measuring cup, if you put solids in, it's not kaddish, pashtus. Says Shmuel, let's say you use, not the measuring cup, but you use the cup that was meant to be mekabel the dam, right? There's different cups for liquids. There's the measuring cups, and then there's the cups that they meant to receive the blood. If you take that and fill it with flour, it's kaddish. How do I know this? Because says Shmuel, that's what they did by the Nisiim. So he's learning out a halacha from the inauguration. The Nisiim were the days leading up to the Beis Hamikdash, right? Nisiim, I don't understand. So how is Shmuel learning it out from that? That was a one-time deal. Says the Gemara, the loyal Shmuel Daris Mishah, Shmuel does not learn out from the inauguration. V'atanan, kli halach mekadosh halach. Vessels that are designated for liquids can be mekadosh liquids. Midas yavish mekadosh yavish. And measures that are designated for solids and mekadosh solids. Vein kli halach mekadosh yavish, like midas yavish mekadosh halach. But vice versa doesn't work. V'amr Shmuel, but Shmuel clarifies, lo yishanu elamidas. That's only true for liquids that are measuring cups that are meant to measure the liquids, aval mizragos, but the basins that are meant to be mekabel the liquids, the mekabel the yayin, mekabel the shem, and mekabel the dam, mekadshin, they could be mekadesh for solids. Where do we find this? Dichsiv, because regarding the inauguration of the Nisiim, it says shneihem le'em silas. Right, we all know the kriya from Parish shneihem le'em silas. They had a cup that was meant for liquids, and they put solids in it. So you see, it's kaddish. What do you see? You see Shmuel learns out from the inauguration. So Gemara says, I'll tell you the difference. Eddie Balkar knows. How many times is that written? It's not written once. It's written 13 times in the pasuk. So yes, it's an inauguration, but it's written so many times, that tells you that something that's written so many times you can learn now from. So the Gemara says, Shani Yasim, Titana Bekrot, Zimni. It's written 12 times. That's Nasi Livnei, Nasi Yemechaveh. It's repeated so many times, that's why he's able to learn now from it. Let's just finish up. Now, according to our Mishnah listed many things that are not ma'akiv. Not ma'akiv. Right? Yitzika, Balila. One of the things written in the Mishnah is Hagasha. Hagasha means taking the mincha, taking the kaimitz to the mizbeach. It's not ma'akiv. Meaning, if let's say I stand by the mizbeach, so I don't have to actually bring it to the mizbeach, says the Gemara, Amr the Rav Kana Ravasi Rav, Hare Hagasha, but the avoid of bringing the mincha near the mizbeach, the Tana Bikra, it's written twice. V'lei ma'akva. So why isn't it ma'akiv? It's written twice. Here's the problem. You're telling me that everything that's written twice is ma'akiv. The Hagasha is written twice. So the Gemara says, no, it's not. Yes, it is. So the Gemara says, no, it's written twice, but the second time is telling you where to bring it. The first time is telling you to bring it to the Mizbeach. The second time is telling you where on the Mizbeach to place the Kli Shares. So because it's a slightly different message, it's not considered repeated twice. Taman Tanabe Dichsiv, where is it written twice? It says, Zois Teres HaMincha Hakre V'Yisabnei Aaron V'nei Hashem. So the Gemara says, no. That's telling you different. That second time is not telling you to bring it, it's telling you where to bring it. Where do I bring the Kmitza in the Kli Shares? Which part of the Mizbeach do I tap it to? Where do I bring it? To that the Pasuk is telling me. To Tanya, it says Lifnei Hashem. We've had this before. Lifnei Hashem means the entrance before God. Now Hashem's presence was felt the most in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is the west. So that means Lifnei Hashem is the west side of the Mizbeach. The problem is it also says, you might think that's the west side wall of the Mizbeach, Tamaloimer El Pnei HaMizbeach. The Pasuk also says Pnei HaMizbeach, which is the face of the Mizbeach, which is where the ramp is. That's the south side. So is it south or is it west? And the answer is southwest. That's how they got it. The Gemara says delta. So the Gemara says southwest. So it's that little corner, it's that corner of the southwest. So the point is this pasuk is not telling me to bring it, it's telling me where to bring it. And that is the southwest corner. So the Gemara says, El Pnei HaMizbech, Pnei HaMizbech Yochel B'Darim, Tamlo Pnei Hashem, HaKeitzad, Megish B'Keren D'Roibis Ma'arav, is K'negul Shel Keren V'Dayai. That southwest corner is both a kiyum of Lifnei Hashem and Lifnei Mizbeach. Because as you see in the picture, the southwest, because you have the south and you have the west, so there you go. So the Gemara says, just to finish up, that's the end of this discussion, but now that we mentioned the Brisa, we're going to mention a second opinion, and that Rav Eliezer's Shita is actually not southwest, it's just the south. Why? Because he actually believes the entire Mizbeach was more to the north. So the south wall of the Mizbeach was actually adjacent to the entrance of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So Lifnei Hashem and Lifnei Mizbeach can both be fulfilled on the south side. You don't need the southwest, because he believes the Mizbeach was actually a little bit more to the north. So the south side was actually near the entrance of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Gemara says, Rav Eliezer Miyachik Gishan L'Marav Shel Keren L'Marav Shel Keren Omrit Kamakon Shad Moitze Shtei Mekrois Echel Mekayim Atzmai Mekayim Chaver Echel Mekayim Atzmai Melatos Chaveroi Menachos Mekayim Atzmai Melatos Chaver Chayv Tzei Zamak Mekayim Atzmai Mekayim Chaver. Anytime you have two psukim and you're able to do something that fulfills both, you fulfill both. So therefore, what? So it says Rav Eliezer Kishat Ta'im L'Vnei Hashem B'Ma'ariv. But Taltal B'nei HaMizbech. Yes, if you choose the west side, that is L'fnei Hashem, but that's not L'fnei Mizbech. But if you go L'fnei Mizbech, you go the south side, that's both. Why? Because he believes the Mizbech was more to the north, and therefore if you touch the mincha to the north, to the south side, that's both L'fnei Hashem and L'fnei Mizbech. Says the Gemara, Kishatayim L'fnei Mizbech B'darim Kiyamta L'fnei Hashem Ve'echa Kiyamta Am Ravashi Kasavar Haitana Kula Mizbech V'Tzafin Koi. The Mizbech was in the north. Therefore, the south side of the Mizbeach was actually adjacent to the opening of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So it's both L'fnei Hashem and L'fnei Mizbeach. I'll stop.